when I first saw a home computer, I was fascinated that you could actually make images move on a screen. So I got a computer and taught myself how to program so I could animate. Well, I think the future is going to have two kinds of games. I think it's going to have, the first kind will be sort of solo story games. It'll sort of have a scripted outcome. The other major kind of game that I think will be in the future will be multiplayer, interactive environment. Production values and storytelling on that will have to be the same level as you see on TV and movies.
I'm your host for this month, Jared Huckabee.
So we're hanging out at Selland Station. Thank you so much for supporting this crazy dream.
I really had such a great time working on Wing Commander with Chris, and when he asked me to do it, he's so brilliant. I didn't need a script. I immediately said, of course.
Happy birthday to you. There you go.
And greetings everyone. I am Griffin Gaming RPG and welcome back to Soul Citizens. We are so excited to have you here today, and I've got to move my buddy fastcart up because for some reason or other our box shifted. Hold on one second. Let's get him looking proper. Let's see. Hold on. Fastcart, I don't know why you're in a different spot than you were a minute ago, but I'll work on that in a minute.
I didn't change anything.
I know, I didn't change anything either. I don't know what happened. But we'll get you in the right spot in a couple seconds. Anyway, we want to welcome you back today. And we have a very special show going on today. As you guys know, we've been looking forward to this show. We're going to have an interview with Chris Neal from Massively Overpowered. And we've been really excited about this. Fastcart and I have been talking about this for over a month. Chris graciously accepted and massively accepted our invitation for them to come on the show and talk about game journalism as well as Star Citizen. So, Chris, you there?
I'm here, man. Thanks very much. Fastcart, what happened to you, buddy? What's wrong with your box?
I've got to fix him because that's not good. We cannot show Fastcart in a bad light. I was going to say a dark light, Fastcart. I don't know. That was my mistake there. But I'll work on him a little bit.
He's got a rad racing stripe, is what it is.
Is that what it is?
Just,
okay.
He's just showing off.
Well, I'm going to work on that. But before we get into it, guys, I want to give you guys a little bit of background on Chris. Chris goes by the name of Wolfie. And is totally a pink wolf and is not someone who just adores his avatar so much that he's lost touch with reality. So I think he's kind of crazy like the rest of us, basically. He's been playing video games since the days of the Atari 2600 and when PCs had to be booted up with a specific sequence. For those of you who remember that, us old timers, gray hair, we remember that. He can be found in a variety of different MMOs and multiplayer games, including MapleStory 2, Dauntless, and Destiny 2, among others. So again, we're really happy to have Chris here, and we're going to have a real candid conversation. If you guys have questions that you want to ask Chris as we go through, there is a link that will pop up and that will show that there's a form that you could fill out. You can put them in chat, but we may miss them if you use the form. Greater possibility that we'll end up seeing those questions and be able to raise them a little bit later. But in the meantime, I'm going to work on fixing fastcart while fastcart begins our interview. So fastcart, it's on your hands, bro.
As long as you're fixing me, can you get rid of my cerebral palsy too? Because
No, I can't work on that, brother. I'm sorry. Just your picture.
Okay, sorry. All right. So
Worth
first
a shot.
question. Yeah, it was worth a shot, exactly. So first question for Chris is how and when did you begin writing game reviews?
On a professional level, I started when I was actually taken up by MMOgames.com. So I started really writing a lot more seriously when I opened up my own blog. Before that, I was just basically like a commenter and a forum lurker on games like the old EGM website. I forget the name of it, but they had like this whole website that they had where you had your own little space to write your own blogs, and I was doing like a few little game reviews there. Started up my own personal blog. I had the good fortune of catching the right eyeballs, and I was picked up by MMO Games, and that's when my professional writing career technically sort of took off. I started off part-time with them for a little bit, and then went full-time as their news editor. And then, unfortunately, I was let go from them due to some financial things that they had going on, but I was picked up by MLP, and the rest has been pretty much history after that point.
So question number 2 is what type of video games do you enjoy playing?
MMOs. That's the quick answer. I mean, I honestly, I really started getting into MMOs back with EverQuest Online Adventures. So like, that was like the very first thing I started playing, and then I really that was on the PS2. So, man, that was a long while. I forget. It was a long while ago, but I really got serious in MMOs when I started playing Final Fantasy 11. If that gives you any more of an obvious barometer.
Cool.
And
I was like 2003 or 2004.
Something like that. It's 2003 or 2004. Played that for a number of years, and then kind of just grew up from there. I really like a lot of action sim games too. Like my very first PC game that I ever personally bought was Mech Warrior 3, and the expansions. And I actually ran like a whole clan for online play and stuff like that. So, like futuristic sort of sim/action games. I really love racing games. I love RPGs of pretty much all sorts. I'm pretty varied diet of gaming, honestly.
All right, so question number 3, can you give us a quick journalism 101 class on the steps you take to review a video game?
So, I mean, honestly, it's just a question of how much time I invest in things, right? Because there's always, when you start playing a game, like you've got that first endorphin rush of, oh, this is new and cool, right? But I try to sort of, when it comes to like reviewing or looking through or getting a general idea of an MMO, I try to go through at least 20 plus levels at minimum, or at least 20 odd hours in total, a little bit more usually sometimes. But that's like kind of like the starting point of where I feel like I can get a general idea of what's going on with the game. Other game reviews that I've written, like for example, I did some contributions for some other sites that I've written for, and some games are done a lot quicker. Like there was this one review I wrote for a game that was like 2 or 3 hours, and I beat it through. But in general, I try to at least give myself 20 odd hours or so roughly of total time. And at that point, like that initial veneer of the new shiny kind of wires off, and I've gotten general idea of like mechanics and gameplay, and I feel like I've gotten a pretty firm grasp of how things work by that point.
I have a question. Is that 20 hours or 20 levels are standard across the industry, or is it something specific for you?
That's just something specific that I was shown and taught. I'm pretty sure that's not the standard for the industry. I mean, I can't really speak to the standards of every other website out there, and it's really kind of up to the editors and what they want. But it's worked for me so far, and I think it's helped. It's kind of gotten a pretty good idea of where I'm at. And some people, I mean, there's other folks who, like, I know there's one person in MOP who's played games to like about 30 odd levels, and that's when they have a better idea. So maybe I'd need a little bit more time to get an extra bearing on what things are feeling like too, or like for example, there's maybe some extra layers to something that's added on at a certain point that is really important to get the whole context and idea of what a game is all about. It really sort of varies. It's up and down. It's not like a hard, fast, set number for me. It's just kind of like the starting point for me personally.
Okay, for number 4, because people often assume that bloggers are the equivalent to professional journalists, would you mind telling us the difference between the two?
I kind of have something of a little bit of experience in regards to working for a site that was company owned versus something that's massively overpowered, that's literally funded and lives and dies by the support of readers and Patreon generosity and just all this incredible support from the people who are actually like engaged in reading and involved in the site. I don't have as many years as some other folks by any stretch, so I'm definitely not like the last word by any means. But if I had to kind of like measure my own personal experience between doing news articles and other articles for a professionally owned site, there's a couple of other. I'm not really able to sort of inject as much of my own personality as I want to. I mean, there's room for my own style and my own opinion. And I've never worked for any place that ever had like their journalistic integrity or their editorial integrity completely ruined by outside interference, like the site owners or the advertisers or anything like that. But I also got the sense that I kind of want to just not be quite as personable as I would in, like, say, my own personal blog, for example. But as a professional blogger and massively, I kind of feel a little more encouraged to just sort of express myself a little bit. I still want to get the facts out there, and for some things, for some news stories, you want to be just as objective as possible, and you don't want to like kind of throw in your own little 2 cents or your own little quick little pithy quips or anything like that. But I still have a general idea that, or a general sense that I can be myself a little bit more. I can open up a little tiny bit more and kind of just inject a bit more of my personality.
Okay, that's great.
Cool.
Chris,
take over, Griffin?
Yeah, sure. We're going to kind of change the gears a little bit here, guys, and talk about Massively and his work there. Chris, what is technically what's your official position at MOP, and how long have you been contributing now?
I guess if I had to, my official title would be like just a news writer, and I'm just a general writer overall. I help out with the daily news items that they have. I maintain and have taken up the reins for the Choose My Adventure column, which is actually a lot of fun. It's really interesting because I basically get to open up polls and have people who are reading sort of steer me along and do and pick out activities or choices or make decisions for me in an MMO I'm playing. As far as how long I've been there, I think it's only been a year, roughly a year, maybe maybe a year and a half. It hasn't been very long.
Okay. And I know you guys also do. I know you do the articles and stuff, but you guys also do an actual audio podcast as well, right?
Yep, we do. Justin and Bree are the arbiters of that. I've been on that podcast a couple of times though, and every time it's been super.
Okay, that's awesome. How are writers, and again, if you can give us insight into just the industry itself or just at MOP, but how are writers assigned to games? Is it kind of like, you have an affinity towards certain things, or do you just get assigned something whether you happen to like MMOs, maybe you just like first-person shooters? How do you get assigned to what games to review?
Honestly, well, when I was working in MMO games, I was basically the one that was doing the whole shebang. So I was trying to find stories. I was picking out what I thought was interesting and writing it up and distributing it. Um, that's not always how it's done, I'm sure. It's definitely not an industry standard, I don't think. But as far as MOP, what we do, we just sort of like talk amongst ourselves, kind of, Bree sort of lines up things that are, assumed to be important or interesting or people want to know about or read about. And we just sort of like say, I'll be taking this story. And somebody else says, I'll take this, I'll take this. So we just sort of pick and choose as we go. Uh, Game assignments are kind of done by personal preference. I mean, I personally, like certain games. There's Elliot, for example. Elliot Lefebvre is an amazing writer there at MOP. He mostly writes about World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy 14, and he's does a great job and seems to like both of those games. Though 14, I think, is a little higher on his enjoyment list of recent. But we'll not talk about that anyway. I'm not gonna. But
Okay.
it's the way it works with Massively. We just sort of like kind of take, we all sort of pick our spots and take up what is deemed important, and then just kind of look through the rest of our newsroom and see what is interesting or what's fun or what we think would be interesting. It's a really sort of open dialogue. It's kind of like a constant round table discussion that we have amongst ourselves, and numerous times, even when we're like writing about something, like we'll finish a story and then we'll like disseminate and discuss about it, and like conversations will spring up, little tiny arguments, and it's really really free form. I'm not sure that's the standard for the industry by any stretch. I'm willing to believe probably not, maybe, but that's just an assumption. I can't really state that as absolute fact.
Okay. Gotcha. In the past, writers at Massively have written reviews on Star Citizen, but since you've arrived there, you've kind of seemed to have, from my listening to the podcast, it seems like you've kind of earned the role of the resident Star Citizen reviewer. What's that been like for you in relation to both your colleagues that you work with as well as the readers that follow you?
And as far as my colleagues are concerned, like we we have some gentle ribbon back and forth about it. Um, there's some people who kind of take playful little jabs at me for being a Star Citizen fan, but then they also understand and appreciate it. And even when I'm taking my licks, like my playful licks, like ultimately all of us want a game like Star Citizen to be a thing, even if there's some disagreement on how it should get there. The readers, I can't speak to them. I've had people get mad at me because I thought the Argo mole looked kind of like a race car to me a little bit. I got people mad at me because I was putting in my lot for for giving the game a bad award, like
Mm.
the um
Or like
the
the annual,
yeah, the
like,
annual, yeah, the
negative, yeah,
bad business
whatever.
award. Yeah,
Right.
that's I've gotten I gotten flack for people getting mad at me because I kind of I don't know. I can't really say that everybody in Star Citizen has been angry to me. There's been a couple of people, like for example, there were a couple of readers who helped me out a lot when I first started taking over the Choose My Adventure column.
Mm.
They like openly came to me like, look, I've got a fleet of ships. We could, play around. We could do some stuff together for a little bit and check things out and kind of, and that helped make the column a lot more interesting. So I don't know. I seem to have this sort of talent for making everybody happy and not happy at the same time.
If I'm not mistaken, that's how you got aboard the Phoenix with Bree and MJ, or just MJ, or
Yeah,
was that
no, there
before
was
that?
Yeah, that was actually one of my favorite streaming moments. We were trying to board the oh gosh, what was it? It was the big chunky freelancer. That's it. Yeah, it was a freelancer. And I opened up the rear door, and like the freelancer started freaking out. Like it was like jiggling everywhere and started doing a booty dance. Like it was
Yeah, we've been there.
And then we had like we had another reader who's a regular reader, like a guy named DK. He brought us on to his luxury yacht. So, it's been sort of a little bit in between with me. I mean, I can't speak to how every single person feels, obviously, but I kind of feel like I've been towing the line a little bit with being, and I feel like that's maybe how I've been honest about the game. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Okay, fair enough. Let's change the gear a little bit. What are your thoughts on the renewed interest in space-themed games over the past decade? Games like No Man's Sky, Elite Dangerous, Dual Universe, Space Engineers, Kerbal Space Program. What do you feel has been kind of the nucleus of that? Because pretty much they had, in the like the 80s, late 80s and stuff with Star Wars and things like that, those Lucasfilm games were very popular. But it seemed like in the 2000s, that whole space genre just kind of went away.
Yeah, I don't know. I think as far as multiplayer games are concerned or MMOs are concerned, we seem to have a glut of fantasy titles, right? So having a little more sci-fi seems to kind of speaking for myself personally, I like sci-fi a little bit more and sci-fantasy a little bit more because there still feels like there's some storytelling and design avenues that you can take that haven't really been explored before. And it feels like the fantasy genre, the high fantasy genre has been sort of worn out. You know what I mean? Like there's not a whole lot of uniqueness there. Well, who knows? I mean, it's and maybe people just like to look ahead to a brighter, cooler, shinier future. I mean, it could be just as simple as that, really.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I know there are a lot of people who feel that Star Citizen, in some ways, may have been the thing that brought people back to this whole thing, and maybe because of both the good and bad hype of it, right?
Sure.
That it kind of made people aware, especially at the very least, to say that PC all of a sudden, started being brought back and popular, where consoles were really, dominating for quite a while. So,
for sure, yeah, totally. That's fair. I mean, and there's only so much sandbox that you can squeeze out of a console game, right? So,
right.
I mean, you've got big open worlds, but there's still walls at the edges of the map.
Definitely.
But PC sandboxes feel like they can be a lot more, expansive, and those walls aren't quite as obvious to me. So yeah, that's totally fair. I think so too. PC gaming in general, just kind of woke up, and we've had awesome things happen. Like I've actually kind of enjoyed a lot of some of the things that Elite Dangerous did. I really have loved watching No Man's Sky just kind of rise like a phoenix. That has been awesome to see. I really want to see what other space games do. I kind of want to see what Kerbal Space Program is going to do next. They got a new one out coming up.
Yeah, part 2. Yeah, people are looking forward to it. Yeah, absolutely. Fastcart, were you going to say something?
And we can't forget other media like The Expanse, for instance, coming into the
TV shows like The Expanse. Yeah, it's got a renewed
and
interest.
that kind of goes to the point where there's still some things that, and there's always going to be tropes for sci-fi, right? And space stuff or space themed things. But overall, there still feels like there's a few more unique little angles that we could go, to kind of, and that's probably why this sort of genre has been kind of glowing up a little bit recently, I think.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we're going to take just a quick break for a minute, guys. And, every once in a while, at least I try, we're going to be highlighting a video by a content creator named Gemini, who basically threw together a nice video. And this was just put out within the last couple weeks on Star Citizen. So we'll take a look at that, and then we'll be back with Chris Neal.
Darkness till the break of day, and I need thy fire just to know until we go down. Until we go down. Until we go down. Until we go down. And I feel it running through my veins. And I need that fire just to know that I'm awake.
Okay, we are back at Soul Citizens, and once again, that video was by a creator named Gemini. Look him up on YouTube. Really, really cool stuff. Love to see when players just kind of do their own creative thing with the tools that are there in Star Citizen. And we are
Player created stuff is so cool. Oh my gosh, that was
I mean,
so
some of
cool.
these
I'm sorry.
people.
I apologize.
No, it's okay. I mean, some of these people blow my mind that they're sitting at home producing these videos. You say, "Wow, this is better than the stuff CIG's putting out." Almost, it's kind of crazy, but there's a lot of talented people. Yeah, there are talented people out there, and it's amazing to see what they're able to do. Again, we're here. Go ahead. Go ahead, Fastcart.
What impressed me about that last video is that they included scene from Invictus Fleet Week, and I'm like, that was just something. It came out on the Monday after the Fleet Week just started, so I don't know when they find time to incorporate stuff that's so recent and put it together, but that was impressive.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Like I said, they're talented out there, which is awesome. Listen, again, thank you guys for joining us today. With all the stuff that's going in the world, you guys could be in a million different places. We appreciate the fact that you guys are spending the evening with us. And we're going to get right back into it with Chris. And this is the part I know a lot of you guys are waiting for, is to talk about Star Citizen. So, Fastcart, why don't you go ahead and start us out?
Yeah, but before we get to that, I just wanted to ask. I can't get the question link up, because if you can post that from the command bot or someplace else.
I will try to get it to come up. Okay.
Thank you. All right. So question 9 is that some have described Chris Roberts' vision of Star Citizen and Squadron 42 as ambitious or even impossible. In an industry that has been fueled historically by innovation and imagination, why is there so much cynicism among gamers and journalists over an ambitious game?
That's a loaded question, honestly. Like, because you've got people who want a lot of innovative and unique and fascinating new games to come out, but then you've also got people, or then you see things like the Call of Duty series or the Madden series just making money hand over fist with every single iteration. For the way I think in Star Citizen's case, like a lot of people are just sort of just fixated on on the macro on the small details, right? They're looking at what's coming now or what's in there now, and they're not seeing it as complete or as full or as fully built and realized as something that's already out, or not even in the same like subgenre necessarily. And it's kind of like it's easy to sort of put something that's still in an alpha state and really not complete by any stretch, and not nearly as full as something like an Elite Dangerous, which has come out with a huge amount of systems and stuff and other things like that, and just sort of like say, hey, these guys did this, what's taking you so long, what's your excuse? And also, like, there's like the double-edged sword of Roberts' vision, right? He's got a very specific way of doing things as far as I can tell. It has to be like this has to be like this, and damn how long it takes. And that sucks for a lot of people who want a game like this to happen, right? Because open development in general is also just a gnarly thing. Like initially when I started seeing crowdfunding rising and open source games come up and things like, I was like, yeah, this is gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see all these new and unique things. And now we're seeing all the grimy, grindy, gristly bits of how the sausage is made. And now there's a lot of people who are like, I don't really, I'm not really, what? Like it takes a lot for just regular games to be made. Never mind something that demands to have specific things in it, like what Chris Roberts does. And that's, for better or worse, just gonna kind of color a lot of perception. I think he does things very specifically. We are in a position where we're seeing a lot of how game development happen now, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty, and it's weird, and it's kind of freaky, and there's also concern about, or there's like, assumptions about where the money is going to, right? That's another thing. People are wondering, why is it taking this long and costing this much and you only have this? So, and those questions don't seem to be super answered terribly well, I don't think, or to a lot of people's satisfaction. So it's an amalgam of a bunch of different things, I think.
Okay. Well, Chris, we're gonna look a quick. Were you gonna say something, fastcart?
Yeah, I was going to say, so this has been like, it's been crowdfunded and it's been an open development process. So do you think they're not open as much, or do you think that the openness is part of the problem?
I think being open is part of the problem a little bit, because we're seeing all the incremental steps as opposed to seeing quantum leaps forward, right? Because before I remember growing up in an age where, you got your information from magazines and you had like the preview story, and then like maybe a few months down the road, you had the full game out, and then like a little bit later you had like a strategy guide and all these tips and tricks and stuff like that. And we're not in that time anymore. Games take a lot longer to develop in general now, and with open development, we're all seeing those tiny little inchworm movements forward, and it's kind of it can be interesting to some and maybe just unsatisfying and aggravating to others, I guess.
Good point. Okay. Well, Chris, we're gonna show a quick clip because and Chris already knows about this, so it's not a gotcha moment, but it helps with the next question that we're going to ask. And this was done by BBC. Click did an interview, some of you guys may remember, where they went to CIG and went to CitizenCon last year and talked about spending in the game. So let's take a quick look at that.
One of the aspects of the game which has attracted a lot of attention is the ships.
I'll make this easy for you. Leave now, or we'll kill you.
There are a plethora of different ships in the game, big and small. They can be purchased with in-game currency, or backers can use real cash, which Cloud Imperium says goes towards further development of the game. Rumours are rife of some backers spending thousands on ships.
Drake Interplanetary. We got your back.
But most of the people I meet at CitizenCon have more modest budgets.
How much money have you spent so far?
That's only about $75 to $100.
Together, I've probably invested about £250 into the game.
It's maybe like £60 or something like that. Not much than that, really.
There's always exceptions to the rule, though.
Yeah, that definitely doesn't look friendly.
I've spent about $7,900 on the game, which to me is like, I think that's crazy. I've never spent that much money on any game ever, right?
Move and kill, baby, move and kill.
So $7,900.
$7,900 US dollars, yeah.
Now we should say that you are a streamer, so this is your living,
yeah,
isn't it?
For sure.
Streaming about this game, so
yeah.
You aren't an average.
Okay. I thought there was a little bit more to that clip, but I think that was it. Okay, fastcart, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No problem. So, question number 10. The BBC show Click reported on the development of Star Citizen taking as long as it actually has. Likewise, other media outlets are reporting neutrally or even positively about Star Citizen in recent years, or at the very least, not reporting as negatively about the project. Why do you think that is?
As far as I can ascertain from following the game as long as I have been, I guess it's because they've gotten to a point where they're really consistently adding things to a playable, legitimate sandbox. And I remember backing this game at the point where all you had was a hangar, you could look at your ship, and you plunk yourself into a seat for Air Arena Commander, and that was it. So now we have something more substantive, right? Something that actually feels like a legitimate taste of what they really want. And it's no longer lip service anymore because, Roberts is promising this and that, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And now we're actually seeing that talk and then pieces of that implementation actually going live and playable and physical. It's starting to make more sense that you can talk about things, you can show off screenshots and have PR, kick out press releases and all sorts of sizzle reels all you want, but it's not going to really connect with a lot of people unless they actually can get their fingers on it and play it. And that's where I think it's starting to take a turn for the better. They're making good on a lot of what they're trying to do.
But the thing is, that's always been the case for Star Citizen, especially like at CitizenCon for the past 6 years. They show something at CitizenCon, and then it's implemented in the game within a year.
But I think the problem with that fastcart is that only the people who are at that level of interest are the ones who witness it. And it doesn't get reported, and I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm just saying, unless you're that far on the inside that you go to the con and you get to see the progress in a big way like that.
But just watch it on YouTube.
No. That's true. But I don't get me wrong. I get it that it's out there, but you still have to follow that. And I mean, I think that there's still a dynamic of people who don't. We always talk about people not doing their homework, right? I mean, even people who are in the community don't do their homework. So we can say, well, maybe journalists should or magazines should do a little bit deeper, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of videos over the last 8 years that have been produced by CIG. I get your point. I honestly do. I just wonder whether or not that understanding of it, unless you've been following it, whether or not people get it. Because I think people get sound bites of what's going on with Star Citizen, and they run with it more than because they've actually spent time watching the development. But I don't know. Chris, you could throw your thoughts in on that.
That's a fair assessment, I think. I mean, because if you're on the outside looking in, it's kind of weird. Why are people losing their mind over going from one solar system to another, right?
Yeah.
But you don't really get the context of that until you realize everybody's been playing in one solar system for a long time. So being able to go into a jump gate, navigate a weird, cybernetic or crazy, space intestine in order to get to another whole new galaxy. That's a big thing. So yeah, but doing the homework is always important for anybody, for any enthusiast, especially for any journalist, to try to get as much context as possible. And that's that's harder. That's easier said than done for some people, especially if you got a lot of things on your plate, a lot of different games that you have to follow, or stuff like that. It's hard to be a specialist sometimes.
And forgive me for going off, but when did you become a backer, or when did you first become familiar with the project?
I backed gosh. Like I said, I backed at the point where it was still kind of like walking in a hangar and looking at a ship. I forget what the year that was. So that was
2013, 14, yeah.
Something like that, yeah, about that long, right? So about 5 years, right?
Back in the helmet flip days, basically.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly, because all it was like I had a little extra money to splash. I was really curious about this game. I figured, why not? I'll kick it out there and see what happens. But I'm not going to bother playing with it until it's something that's actually tangible. Because when I got into the game and walked around the hangar, I was like, ugh, this is it? Well, all right. Well, I'll just step away for a little while and wait for things to crystallize.
Okay, so for question 11, the spending habits of Star Citizen backers seem to get a lot of coverage in the media, but most backers spend $60 or less or only get one small, inexpensive ship. Could you explain why it seems that most journalists who report on Star Citizen seem to believe that backers, more often than not, spend a lot more money on the game?
Honestly, like what doesn't help that perception is some of the concept sales, right? So, like for example, you had a moment where CIG had that concierge private function to reveal that $600 Aegis ship, the Aegis Nautilus. That doesn't really kind of sit well with a lot of folks, and it's sensational, right? It's just kind of crazy. Even if it was like a one-off sort of event, or it doesn't happen on a regular basis, the fact that this happens is just kind of remarkable, and you immediately think, well, why would that happen? Who would do that? And why would a company want to foster this sort of behavior? So there's a lot of initial gut check reaction without getting the whole broad spectrum of everybody's total spending habits. All we can really see is like CIG has done this big sale of a bunch of motorcycles for $450. They had a private event in Frankfurt, Germany, to unveil a $600 ship. They are having these free fly events, and you see, or the Fleet Week thing going on, and you see, you see spikes in sales, and some people just sort of focus in on that without really kind of getting the general picture, and that's what kind of makes more people what more people tend to watch, right? Nobody wants to read about CIG courted about $5,040 backers. I mean, that's not as big of a headline as CIG opened an event for a $600 ship.
So do you feel that becomes, and I'm just using the terms because you'll know what I mean, do you feel that it becomes clickbait for some writers or periodicals or magazines because that becomes their headline and they're going to get viewers? Or is it because they genuinely don't grasp the complete concept or understanding? Because, not to be funny, CIG is a business. And it's like almost like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't raise enough money, the project fails, which gamers have been susceptible to over and over as Steam, right? But then if you do raise too much money, then where's the money going? And it's almost like you're in some weird space in between of trying to, walk that tightrope,
Yeah, it's totally a balancing act. And I don't know if I can't really speak to clickbait, but it's something that sort of I guess I don't want to call it clickbait because I actually wrote that story about the $600 thing. I was, and as somebody who has been watching and following and supporting the game, I still think that's freaking nuts. And I still feel like there's a duty to tell people that this sort of behavior is happening. along with all the other good stuff that's happening, the regular business model. And yeah, they're a business. They got to make money. I get that. But you're selling a JPEG or a PNG for hundreds of dollars. That I feel like I got a duty to point that out too, That's just, it's just not fair to everybody to just kind of ignore the weird stuff going on. I mean, there's people who love the EverQuest series, but there was reports about what the heck Daybreak was doing to change the history books and literally move their goalposts. It's easy to call it clickbait because that's what a lot of people see. That's what they focus on, and that's like the only takeaway. But I kind of consider it a duty to sort of just shine a light on the weird stuff that happens too. As much as I love to write about all the cool things that are showing off in Inside Star Citizen, the neat stuff that is unveiled at CitizenCon, things like that, you kind of have to look at behavior like that and be like, wait, why?
Right. Let me give you a different perception from someone who's on the other side, right?
Sure.
Because there's one perception that we do hear people, and the joke is always about, they're paying X number of dollars for a JPEG. I don't feel I'm buying a JPEG. As a person who's been gaming since, like you, I've been gaming since we used to put punch cards in computers. So that tells you how far back it goes, right? I've watched the evolution of games, and you've been around long enough to remember when companies like EA came out, and EA was like the Apple of video game producers. If you remember, they had this unique way of packaging, and they changed the way we looked at video games. They used to highlight their developers, right? Not the company, but the developers. There was a whole different change and shift that happened in PC gaming when EA came out. Now, EA is the disdain of the world, but back then, they were the golden boy of the world, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And people bought into that. And when I look at what's going on, because I'm very clear about, one, the amount of money I'm spending and what I'm spending it on, I'm paying into the dream, not a JPEG. I'm not paying into the discard. It's like when you're watching public TV and you're watching and they say, we got Sesame Street going on and this has impact on kids and families. And if you want to support us, if you send us $100, we'll send you this CD. Now, you and I both know that CD is worth $5, right? But the other $95 is going toward making sure that the vision of PBS continues. So on the other side, that is for most people that I talk to, that is what they're buying into, is the dream. They're buying into the vision. So I get why people may feel, because the way the industry has been going, that these people are spending that much money. Who pays that much money for a JPEG? I get it. I really do. I was an Eve player. We used to call those, JPEGs too. But Eve didn't offer me. I can't tell you how much money I spent on Eve. Oh my God. Eve didn't offer me what Eve didn't offer me. It offered me this idea of being able to play something. But what Eve didn't offer me was a possibility of innovation and changing the gaming industry. Now, mind you, that's risky, because there's a lot of people who come to the table talking about their next game is going to, what's the word they use now? A game changer, right? And I mean, how many times has the community been burned by that? And I do understand that when you start talking about 3-digit numbers, 4-digit numbers, right? Yeah, I can understand the skepticism that comes because of the way the gaming industry has really burned gamers over the last decade. I get where some of the cynicism comes from. So I'm just want to put that other side to it, because we do hear that JPEG phrase, but man, there's so many people who tell me, no, dude, I'm paying for this because I believe in what they're trying to do and I'm hoping that they achieve it.
That's why I threw $65 at them. I believe in the dream too. I really, really do. And there is no world where Star Citizen failing is a wonderful thing.
Right.
If that's how you feel about things, you're a jerk, man. Nobody, even those of us in massively who are just some of the most cynical and weirded out and squiffed by the industry practices in Star Citizen and in other games, in crowdfunding in general, even. But none of us want games to fail. I love the MMO genre. I want games like this to happen. I want more games like this to happen.
Right.
If this literally plays out the way that Roberts and CIG wanted to, this legitimately could blow open a whole lot for sandbox gaming and sci-fi gaming and PC gaming. but so I 1000% am in on buying into the dream. I get that. And like, you know, you buy into, you're willing to, you believe in that so hard that you spend that much money. Good on you. That's your money to spend. Who am I to tell you you're wrong? That's your money. That's what you consider value is not my value, and that's okay. I would love to. I just worry that that's all that people will focus on, and I would like to see that perception change when they do more things like have more direct to flyable ships, right? If they did more things like that, if they had less concept sales and more direct flyable sales, then I think that would change a lot of minds in general too.
And I think you got a lot of Star Citizen fans who would agree with you. 100%, because they were now ever since they did direct to flyable. Ever since they did direct to flyable, people were like, oh, wait, is the next one going to be direct to flyable? So yeah, I think that people would enjoy that more. Fastcart, what were you going to say? I'm sorry, or do you go to the next one?
Okay, yeah. There's a lot of comparison with Leave Online, for instance. They do it a different way. People can buy a Plex and sell that in game for in-game credit, and then they sell enough Plex, they can buy like a Dreadnought or something. It's almost the same process. It's you can call it a JPEG spaceship. They're spending real life money to get a spaceship, but it's on it. The mechanics are different, but and it doesn't seem to be. I mean, it doesn't seem to be as important much. I don't know how often people do it, but it is done. But you know, it's just that Star Citizen does it up front.
I know. Don't you would remind me about Eve and make me think about how much money I spent in that game. That's not a good thing to do. Really not a good thing to do, because I was one of those people who got caught up into buying Plex at one point because I wanted to expedite my advancement in the game. You know. But you're right, and even sometimes when there's the reports about Eve, like, you know, when they have the big battles, they'll publish, you know, X number of dollars in value of ships, you know, was destroyed. And there may be some people that say, what? You know, so it is different. But again, I think that some of the cynicism comes from an industry and a community that, for one, has been burned. I will grant them that we've been burned a lot by games and you know, startups or whatever. But I think I'm an old guy too. I know, Chris, you were talking about this earlier about how we used to have to read things, right? Read the PC magazines and read this, and we used to have to read manuals, right?
Yeah,
you know,
if you wanted the story, you had to open up the manual.
Yeah, you had to open the manual. You know.
Wait, what is this thing you call manual?
Yeah, I mean, you used to have to do that, you know, and now we are in a very, for lack of a better term, we're in a time of people want gratification very quickly, you know, and we see that's happened in gaming. So I'm not going to belabor that point. Go ahead, Fastcart. We'll go to the next question. We'll beat this to horse to death.
I just want to say, can we bring it up at some point? It's like some people spend money on other hobbies, like golf. They spend money on clubs, and or for us, gamers, we spend money on our PC rigs. So you know, it's like there's different scales and stuff like that, but everyone has a hobby, and everyone can spend the money that they want because it's their money. But on to the next question. Question 12. Most video games are produced behind closed doors. There's an initial amount of a period of development silence, which go on for years, maybe an update or two on occasion, and then beta, and then release. Do you feel like the transparency of Squadron 42 and Star Citizen from the announcement to now has hurt or helped it?
I kind of feel like it's sort of hurt it a little bit more than helped it. They kind of were in the middle for a little bit there, but and this isn't just unique to Star Citizen either. I'm kind of seeing a lot of update burnout with things like Camelot Unchained, for example. There's just a lot of, and that kind of goes back to that point I made earlier about how everybody's seeing all the grimy, dirty little pieces that make up game development, especially games that haven't tried a whole lot of new things before, or are trying to do some new things, and it's just weird and uncomfortable, and I don't know. I feel like Star Citizen does a great job of putting production value on those incremental steps, right? They have like a whole video series, and they have
Inside Star Citizen.
yeah, Inside Star Citizen, and calling all devs, and like they really put like a lot of glitz into that. I guess it's like a sterile sausage factory, if you want to look at it that way, to extend the analogy. But like it's still kind of just, you're still seeing small little tiny steps, and when you kind of don't have a whole lot of perceived game there, right? All you're seeing is these little tiny if you take it at face value that Star Citizen made a video where they spent 7 or 8 minutes talking about how the lights on buildings turn on and off. That's not really remarkable to a lot of people, right? Like, who cares that you're building?
Well, some people do.
Yeah, and some people do, right? But in general, like, there's always still that other perception as well that like these are little tiny things that nobody needs to know about. So and some people totally do, absolutely. But I think that does a little more harm than good in some cases. And then they also have unique stuff that like they're talking about, the specifics of how different mining lasers work, and that's really kind of unique and interesting, and really adds a whole new level of gameplay. Like it's all sort of multi-layered. Sometimes there's seeing these little things come together is really interesting and satisfying and cool to see happen. And then other times you're like, we've spent a lot of time on why people are getting mysterious sandwiches in their hands out of nowhere. Like, so it's sort of half and half, though maybe a little more harm than good in some cases. I don't know.
So here's the question. So in your perspective, do you think like they come out with a Mark 1 of a ship and then become Mark 2 and then Mark 3, like the Origin 300 series had a rework? Do you think stuff like that hurt the project, hurt the perception of the project?
A little bit, because there is still that sort of assumption by some folks, I think, that you're paying for power, right? Or you're paying to win. Even though there's no real win condition in Star Citizen regardless. People are still assuming, like, how do I get to, be really good at piracy or blowing up other ships? I'll just chuck about $80 or $100 at the problem. And that sort of misses the point of, one, I mean, there's no end game. Nobody wins. And two, like, some of the bigger ships need a lot of other people to fly them. And three, like, you can get this stuff with, in-game money. You don't need to open your wallet. You really don't. But you still see this progression of power, right? You have like the old ships like the Hornet, and then you move on to stuff that's doing crazy things, like that ship that's pulling people out of warp, or the Carrack, or the Mole, which is basically the old mining ship, but better and cooler. There's that sort of progression of power where you can see it on one side as like, oh cool, they're having purpose-built ships, and then the other side of the coin is, oh cool, they're releasing stuff that's basically causing people to race to the top. And it's, I don't know, it's that seems to do a little bit more harm than good.
I think that part of what you're mentioning is some of it is perception, and some of it is bad communication, maybe on behalf of CIG. For example, people who've been in the game long enough know and have seen people take a ship that's $65 and blow up somebody's ship that costs $300. And Chris has always said that this would be skill based. You even mentioned a moment ago that, yeah, it's great to say I can go out and buy a Polaris, but I got to have 8 people to fly it. The risk versus reward says that if that ship gets blown up, I might have to wait 5 days before I get it back. Is that something people want to do? But I think because the way games have always been, there is this assumption that if you spend money, it's giving you some advantage over other players. And CIG has made it very, very clear that they want to make sure that there is a balance, that doesn't happen. And I know this is always this argument of pay to win, pay to advance, whatever the case may be. But from my experience and from what I've seen, and I think a lot of people in the game have seen, is that they're really trying to base this around skill. That's why there aren't levels. You know, a lot of games, you know, you have all this stuff with levels and everything. There's reputation that says how much you play the game and how well you do with the game will have impact on other things that you can and cannot do or access. But that's a matter of how much time you spend in the game. Nobody can pay for reputation. I can spend $10,000 on something, but if this planet says you can't come here, I can't come there regardless of how much money I've spent. So I think that they need to do better with communication. And also, one of the problems that came up was the website itself. Because the website isn't always clear. As you mentioned, if someone goes there and says, I want to get into this game, and they happen to, now they've done it now, they have a page that says the starter ships and starter packages. But back in the day when you hit that page, you know, you hit everything from, you know, $1,500 down to $45. And obviously people would initially say, well, is this how much it costs to play the game? And that's because the way the industry has been structured all these years, you know, we talk about backing. We've never really looked at it in that way before, I don't think, at least for gamers. So I think that they needed to do a better job in letting people understand. I think even when you talked about that paywall, the $600 paywall, or if you're not concierge, you can't see certain things. I think it's almost a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation again, because if it was open to everybody to see what's behind that wall, they'd be criticizing it. But then there are other people who say, well, you know, we want to see what's behind the wall and we can't, so we're being cheated. I mean, you know, it's a weird thing. And I think it goes back to what we were saying earlier about what's the tightrope, you know, that creates balance. And CIG is learning. You know, new company, a lot of old veterans in there, but new company starting out with a new concept and vision. And I'm going to lead that into my next question. Chris, I'm going to skip the next question because you already answered it, because you said that you felt that if CIG succeeds, it will have a great impact on the industry. So I'm not going to make you have to repeat that again. What has, to you, and I just talked about this, what to you has CIG done well? And what do you think maybe some things were that they could have done better?
Honestly, now they're sort of like I said before, they're sort of making good on what they are putting out there. They're showing off stuff that they're working on. They're kind of talking about it in videos and articles and stuff like that. And then they actually like add it in. They're doing a little bit better of managing their timeline some more. Not great. 3.9 had a whole lot of features, and then a whole bunch of them got cut or pushed back, right? So there's still work to improve there, but they do seem to be doing a better job of knowing the how hot that fire is and how much it burns when they say we will hit this target and it's missed. Like that. It sucks. So they're getting better at trying to sort of gauge windows and be honest with how much time things are taking and stuff like that. That's one thing I'm seeing kind of improve. But they could do better. I mean, like I still think, for example, Invictus was pretty nasty, right? Like it was nasty. Those servers are getting beat up and down. They're not ready for stuff like this. They're not ready for big events, for big public splash events. They're not ready. It's not ready. The servers are not set. The tech ain't there yet. Persistence isn't nearly where it needs to be. Like, if you want to have like a big event, wait until all the servers are merged and you have one persistent universe, right? Wait until a lot of that bedrock is really laid down. Don't do these big events when you're still just one solar system and your servers are kind of wonky and just on a regular basis, you know?
But on the other hand, this is alpha and this is the testing phase. Just get them information and data to improve things later on, so that when it actually goes to the PU or like goes live, they won't have these issues when it really counts.
Sure, and that's fine, but they don't frame it like that, right? They don't say this is a large
frame,
public
but in different places. It's not out front, put it that way.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's my point. They should just see like this is a big mass test. We want to see how our servers handle this stuff, right? Instead, they're putting out sizzle reels for Invictus Fleet Week and and spending days and days and weeks talking about the lore of Invictus and the stuff that you'll see and the things you can do and all the ships that are coming and can be tested and fly for free, this, that, and the other thing. Oh, by the way, we have sales. They're less public events. They're less public, like, stress tests, and they feel more like sale events. Like we need a quick cash injection. And that's not good for people who have already are worried that this game is just nothing but trying to fleece people. That doesn't send a good message, especially when the free event doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like that's puts a thorn in people's brain.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point. I think that even if they had done the sale, because, not to be funny, they have a very glossy marketing plan, right? You see the commercials, and it's like, holy smoke. Every time I say, I'm not spending any more money, I see one of those commercials in my wallet's like, okay, what am I spending? That's how I feel, right?
Those are like the slickest
They are.
adverts, though,
They
right?
are. They draw you in. But I think you're absolutely right. And I know that there may be some concern. Some people may not agree with this. I don't know that it wouldn't hurt. So on the bottom of that screen, have down, this game is in alpha and for testing. First of all, it says that they're being upfront and letting people know what they're getting into. And maybe some people still don't get it, even if you say that, But I think that, there is this, like you said, the sizzle. And when you watch the commercial and you see the F8s flying, you see a game that is functioning. And if you do bring people in, even if it's free fly, even if they haven't spent money, and there have been citizens who've said this, people who are in the game who say sometimes they're a little nervous about inviting people in because they don't want people to walk away from the experience, even though, they understand what the game could be. Those people may not get it. And so they're turned off. And so now they don't want to come back, or they don't want to spend money, or they don't want to back. So, I think that your point to me is a well made point in the sense of we do need to let those people who don't understand what it means to be an alpha, the history of Star Citizen, that when you're coming to a free event, you're also helping us test the game. And I think that kind of takes some pressure off. But there are going to be some people who are going to complain no matter what, right?
Yeah, exactly. People are still going to whine but if you don't get a little more forthright with that, all people are going to walk away from is a bad experience, crash server. They're not going to care what other advancements happen. They're only going to be like, yeah, you know what? People who said this game is a ripoff, they were right.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Okay, so you think people who have a bad experience now won't come back at all, or or maybe they'll wait and see?
They'll be gun shy. I mean, once bitten, twice shy, right? It's hard to say. I mean, there's people who, even though Fallout 76 Wastelanders did a lot to right its ship, when that came out on Steam, there were people whose sole purpose in life was to bomb that game's reviews to make sure nobody touched it because they were in Fallout 76 from the off. They had a bad experience. That's it. This game can't possibly be fixed, right? That was what they were hell-bent on driving on, and that sucks. That really is unfair.
Yeah.
Especially the games that are trying to be unique and develop new stuff like Star Citizen is trying to do.
Well, you mentioned No Man's Sky earlier, and that's another example, right? I didn't buy No Man's Sky when it first came out because I was extremely skeptical because that was ambitious to me, and I was like, I'm not feeling it. I'll wait and see. And after the game came out and all the hoopla happened, eventually I did buy it when they started working on it. And it's been a slow process, but a lot of people have started to come back to it. But there are also a lot of people who said, I'm not touching it. I don't care what they've done to it. I do think there was a lot of harm that happened when people, bought into the vision of what they thought they saw. So I think it's a little bit of both. Those people who will come back, and then those people who, no matter what you tell them, they're gone,
And then there's the success story of Final Fantasy 14. They had a horrible start, and then they had to sit down and create almost a new game from scratch, almost, and call it Reborn, and they've been successful ever since.
Yeah, but they also have the history of their franchise to back them. You know what I mean? Where No Man's Sky was a new company. Yeah, I mean,
Well, Chris Roberts had the history of Ring Commander.
Yeah, but I was just mentioning it in relation to No Man's Sky. That game company didn't have a lot to stand on, And even though we understood, people who were in the gaming industry understood what happened with Sony and distribution and short of time, blah, 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 people didn't care about that. They had bought into that idea of this great game where they could do all these things. And for $60, they got burned, you know. Okay, well, let's move on here. Let's see. Oh, here's and Chris, you already know this, but we're going to read a quote that came from Massively, and it was the Massively OP staff pick for the worst. Chris mentioned this earlier, the worst business MMO model for 2018, and you wrote, "I'm coming around to the potential of Star Citizen, but even I have to agree that there's a point where the folks behind the game have to close up the store, stop selling ships, knuckle down, and actually create more compelling content. I'm still positive they can do it. They just need to stop with the panhandling and bloody well create stuff already." Chris, just so you'll know, there are people in Star Citizen who say the same thing. Okay, so you're not by yourself. Okay. So the question though is, do you still feel the CIG should quote unquote close up the store and stop selling ships? Why or why not? And how would you propose to make money to develop the game if they were to do that?
My mind has changed a tiny little bit on that. I would rather that they sell direct to flyable ships if they have to sell ships at all. But I still think that they need to, yes, focus more on kind of making things happen, getting stuff to work, and they have been. To their credit, they are getting to a point, and at that point, that was 2018, right?
Right.
So that was still a point where it felt like they were still making tools, right? They were still trying to work out. Yeah. And there's a lot more tools being made then, though. It felt like they were still trying to get socks to work, and persistence wasn't super altogether there, I don't think, at that point. So now they've gotten to a point where they're not making as many tools now, right? They still have the Quantum, which is, gosh, I can't wait for that freaking to get in the game. They're still working on Quantum, and they're finished, and they've got like their new Planet V4 stuff. And yes, they're still doing some tool tweaking, like the what is it? What's the one that they have for the HUDs for ships? The blocks, I forget the name of it. Not just for ships either, but like for
glass?
No, not Mobiglass. No, not the Mobiglass. So the I forget the name of it, but it basically allows them to sort of yeah. So they're doing that. Yeah. Thank you. Building blocks UI. That's it. So the building blocks, they're still making cargo stations, as was pointed out as well. They're still building on Quantum, but it still doesn't feel like they're making piece tools as much and actually applying them or using them to create stuff. So they kind of are improving a little bit on that front. It's still kind of incremental. I would like them to kind of make things a lot more stable server-wise, for sure. For example, that's always going to be like a constant bugbear anyway. Nobody's ever figured server stability out full stop. But my mind has changed a tiny little bit on that. I think they should. I will amend now to say I don't think they should close the shop so much as reel it back a bit. Right. Okay. Have more direct to flyable ships. Stuff like that. And merch sales are, merch is fine. Whatever. Merch is no big deal. But I don't. I kind of changed my mind a little bit on that. Yes.
Okay. Fair enough. And since you kind of touched on the idea of what you feel would help with moving from concepts to direct sales, I'm going to skip question 16 for you. So you just kind of responded to that already. One of the most successful video games in history was GTA 5, or is GTA 5. As of 2019, Rockstar has shipped over 120 million copies worldwide and made sales of exceeding $5 billion. GTA 5 was announced back in 2008 and was released in 2013. And at that time, Rockstar had a studio, it was fully staffed, had a working game engine, and they spent $265 million to produce that game. Now today with inflation, that would cost about $296 million to produce it. And Star Citizen has reached just over. In fact, are they at 290 now, fastcart? Where are they at now?
Almost 295.
Almost 295 million. So they're approaching that number now.
No, they are at 295.
No, I mean approaching 296. They're approaching 296, the same amount that GTA would cost, right? From backers over these past 8 years. Why do you think there is an issue with some in the gaming community and with CIG raising that level of money, not just for one game, but for two? Because this is encompassing both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen at the same time.
Well, like, people are mad that two games happened, for one thing. Like, look at Ashes of Creation.
Mm-hmm.
They went out and released or talked about AOC Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
People got mad at it, right? Camelot Unchained said that they were kicking out another game. People got mad. They're still mad at Mark Jacobs and City State over that nonsense. So, you know, just it's like this sort of armchair developer thing where, like, everybody thinks they know how this works, or it has some assumptions, or maybe even some educated guesses, but we don't really know for sure. As far as the amount of money that's gone into this game versus what's out now, what is it now? 7 years? Almost 8 years?
Yep.
They have one solar system to show for it, and that doesn't seem like money well spent, especially when they are hell-bent on making their own tools, right? And doing their own thing, building their own engine, having everything sort of like bespoke, right? When there are engines out there that have already solved this problems. They're calling their actor system, it's hunger and thirst. That's already been done by dozens of survival games already. You know, having buildings turn lights on and off, that seems like something that was already handled by Unreal. There's stuff out there that already has made these things happen, and probably doesn't require that as much money as Star Citizen seems to need in order to run, right?
Right.
So there's this idea that they're just wasting money on making bespoke things that are ultimately useless, and all they have to show for it is just one system with a few planets and moons, and not all of the gameplay beats. That hurts. That hurts perception.
It's true that they only have one system, but the planets that are in that system, some of those planets belong to other systems. But they had to bring it into the standing system for the test bed. Because eventually, traveling between systems, you know, that's a little bit down the line. But they wanted to get the plant that they do have ready, put it into Stanton, and, you know, for people to play on and have feedback on.
And to fastcart's point, and I understand you said perception, because, you know, perception for a lot of people is reality, right? People hear there's only one system, and of course that makes them think, well, what have they been doing all this time? But let me give you another picture of that, because you said something earlier. You said, well, they were working on this, that, and the other, and it's not a big deal or whatever. I remember reading where people said, well, they were working on bartending. Why are they doing that? You know, right? Of all things that they're working on, right? But the reality of it is that bartending is the template for the AI in the game that will now move to storekeepers, shops, people in AI who are flying your planes, all types of other things. The bartender was just the place where they started to work. So it extends beyond, you know, something as simple as the bartender. And there are a lot of things in Star Citizen that people will see, and they will think, well, it's just this or why. Hey, Joshua, thank you for the follow. I'm not sure who did before that. Oh, the subscription. I'm sorry. Thank you for the subscription. And so I think that, believe me, I'm like you. I've been in here since 2013 or 2014, something like that. Most of that. Thank you for the follow. And I've watched all of this. And again, being old school gamer, right? We've been living through the technology and the change. When we say that, well, they're working on lights, who cares? Well, we're working on lights, who cares? Because that particular orbital runs on a certain clock, because it's actually rotating around its planet, which is also really rotating around the sun, not a picture in a JPEG that every other game has had. Yep. Now, if people don't know that, they think this is no different than Ark or 7 Days to Die that have day and night cycles. They don't have that. And so some people will say, and this is within the community, well, who cares about that much detail? Do I need to see the rivet? You know what I mean? And see the name of the manufacturer that's next to the rivet, right?
Do I need to see the shadows of every rivet?
I mean, and there are people who say it, and then there's the other group of people who will spend an hour looking at the rivets, you know, and look at the detail. You know, I mean, there's both sides to this, you know, this whole piece that we've been talking about. And I have to say this to other people who are in the game when folks within the community get to working up about, you know, why is this taking so long? And I say this. Chris Roberts' first video, he said, I want to make the game that I've always wanted to play. He did not say, I want to make the game that you guys have asked for. Now, that's a hard pill to swallow because it says that we have to be willing to go with his vision, even though there's forums and, you know, people submit stuff through Spectrum and all this other stuff. He said, I want to make the game that I want to make. George Lucas, when he writes his Star Wars films, I'm sure there are plenty of people that try to tell him how to run his thing, but it's his thing. And you can like a Star Wars movie or you can hate a Star Wars movie, right? If George Lucas said tomorrow that I'm going to, thanks Aliciana, hey Aliciana, thank you for the subscription. If George Lucas came out tomorrow and said, I'm starting a new film company, I'm starting a new space series, and I need people to donate, you think people would donate? There'd be plenty of people that would donate. And there'd be plenty of people who said them first 3 movies sucked, I'm not giving them a dime, right? I mean, you're going to have both sides to that because some people felt burned from those movies. Or other people felt like, man, if George Lucas is doing it, then maybe I'll take a chance on it. And I think there are people who've looked at Chris Roberts in that same way, maybe from a very nostalgic standpoint, you know? Those people who were around back in the early days of Wing Commander and remember what it felt like to get into something that was different. So, I mean, there's a lot of variables in there, but I think that maybe this is back to CIG, you know, not just talking about the bartender, but really explaining in greater detail. But then we've got some people in the community who don't want to hear the details. There are people who watch Calling All Devs and say, it was boring. Then there are other people who sit there and watch lore, you know, the lore stuff, and they eat it up. So it's a tough way to make everybody happy, not just outside the community, but even within the community.
Oh, for sure. And I think context is key, right? Because, like, there's a lot of assumption that people who are watching the Star Citizen stuff already know what's come beforehand, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't kind of like lay out why this sort of thing is interesting or a step forward, that doesn't help that whole perception,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of why it's taking this long, why they're spending this much money, and the only takeaway people are getting from is like the lights turn off.
Right.
It's you know if you don't explain the lights turn off because we have a system that has an orbiting and that orbits a sun at a regular interval all the time, whether you're online or not, that would help. I think, and that's not something that they've really been super communicative about.
Fastcart, you gonna say something?
Yes, sorry. It was Nascavian who gifted 4 stars to a bunch of us.
Oh, dude, awesome.
So I want to say thank you for that.
Yes.
Also, we found the link for the question form, and I'm going to put that in again. So if you have a question, go ahead and submit a question there. Thank you. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I did have.
It's on you. Okay.
I did have one other. Like you talk about the CIG has been making tools to make the game, and you know, and they come a long way, but they're continuing to. But still in the process of making tools is also what by seeing how the sausage is made. So do you think that they're not striking a balance with
I think they're getting better at that. Like there was a point through a lot of 2018, there was a lot of my perception was, you know, they're just constantly doing stuff or making things that have already been done. Why is it taking so long for these tools to be made? And now we're in 2019 and into 2020, those tools are being applied now, right? It's all that work is starting to bear a lot more perceptual or even obvious fruit. So I don't know. They sort of put themselves into a corner here because they feel like they need to kick out the Inside Star Citizen every week, even though they don't have necessarily a whole lot to say maybe that week. Sometimes.
Well, then they take off a month break when the patch coming out too.
Right,
so
exactly, and then Right. Yeah. If they break it up, and they're just good because they need to build up more stuff to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think again, it's a matter of just balance. It's once going back to that whole tightrope walk. They're just walking on all the tightropes. Really.
Mm.
They need to kind of. It's hard to strike a balance between keeping people informed of what they're doing versus actually like making something that feels like legit progress to not just the people who are invested in the game like financially as well as emotionally, but just in general, people who are on the periphery and the outside looking in, just kind of like orbiting around the outside, right? Even the haters, man. What better way to shut up a hater and people who are dumping on the game than making some legit forward steps, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And plus, they not only are they making tools, and I forgot the point I was going to make. Sorry.
That's okay.
Continue on.
Yeah. Hey, it's Stick. Thanks for the follow. We saw you. Next question's on you, fastcart. 18's on you. Okay. We're almost done, guys. 2 more questions. We'll take any questions.
I'm sorry, I'm long-winded.
No, we're doing good.
No, it's good. We're having a good conversation. It's part of our fault, too. We're asking questions in between. So question 18. If Star Citizen and Squadron 42 are never released, it will be devastating to not only those who have backed the game, but also the idea of crowdfunding video games in general. But if CIG accomplishes the goal of making the best damn space game ever, producing both Squadron 42 and Star Citizen, from your perspective, what would be the impact on the game industry?
I think that would make crowdfunding a little less weird. Not ultimately, though. But I think it would kind of help people assume that crowdfunded projects, Kickstarter projects, even the biggest ones like Star Citizen, can actually happen. And it still feels like if Star Citizen really and Squadron 42 legitimately complete everything they set out to do, it will be a big moment, but it'll also still feel like a little bit like a lightning in a bottle thing, like kind of like World of Warcraft was a perfect storm sort of release. This one would be like a triumphant success, but they did it in spite of all these odds and difficulties and trials and all this other thing. Like any other game in the world would call this development hell if we were talking about a standard video game.
Yeah.
Right. So like on the one point, I think it would ease some minds about crowdfunding. Kickstarter could absolutely hold this up and be like, hey, this game that has been just one of the most incredible space sandboxes of our gaming generation has started here. And so, we're the place where dreams really do come true. And that'll help, but it'll make I think it'll make a splash, but I don't think it'll be super widespread overall. There's still going to be people who are going to be risk averse. There's still going to be publishers who are going to chase the easy money, but I think it'll help embolden crowdfunding, kind of ease some of those concerns a little bit, and kind of maybe make people think that maybe these big crazy projects can actually happen now. I mean, something as quote unquote bloated as Star Citizen happened. Why can't this other games happen?
So it's interesting that you just called the game bloated, as other journalists or bloggers and people who report on game actually call the game vaporware. So what do you think?
Well, so again, it's just a matter of perception and also not doing the homework again, right? As people are just sort of taking things at face value and just sort of maybe glossing through comments and assumptions and kind of taking the temperature of the wider gaming populace and thinking, okay, well, this game isn't really going to ever come together, or it's just not a whole lot there. And there isn't much there, but there's more than people think too.
Mm-hmm.
I saw someone, exactly. I saw someone in the chat say something, and I'm going to paraphrase, and I apologize if I got this quote wrong. It said, "This game has this weird mixture of incredible polish and really weird problems all at once." and like it's one of the most unique games as a result of that. So yeah, it's just so divergent and weird and sloppy and messy and bumpy and long and huge budgets and huge promises and huge production values and really interesting steps and fascinating things and spaceships that are modeled and designed and loved with like Forza and Gran Turismo levels of adoration. Like these, it's car porn for things that don't exist. It's just such an odd amalgam. It's just as fascinating to watch this sort of thing coalesce. It's like poking a weird germy thing in a petri dish, right? You know, it's always gonna draw attention. Kind of like with EVE Online. You know, people don't want to play the game, but gosh dang, do they love reading about them wars?
Especially when it costs like $3 million, $300,000 in chip damages and stuff like that.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's just so weird, and this game almost seems like it's too strange to die. But if it manages to make it, that'd be awesome. Ultimately, it would be awesome, and I think like in the greater game world, maybe a little more ease in crowdfunding. But ultimately, what it'll mean is that people get the space game that they want. Like people who bought into that dream, like you were talking about funding the dream, throwing money at the dream. That dream has become reality. Now all of a sudden, it's there. It's tangible. You can do the thing now.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's really cool.
Okay.
And I remember the point I was gonna make a couple of questions ago. Is that Star Citizen both have to be a playable game right now and still be in development. And if it wasn't for the fact that it had to be playable in a certain state, they probably might have finished by now, or gotten a lot more done.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I mean, it's possible that they should have had more done before it was made playable, possibly, but they are where they are now. They're adding things on. It's starting to layer up. You know, we'll see. It's still a slow process, and it's still got a very long way to go, which doesn't help the perception of it's taking forever.
Okay.
Okay.
Ta-da! Final question.
Question 19. Would you consider taking a tour of a CID studio in Los Angeles, California, Austin, Texas, Manchester, England, or Frankfurt, Germany for an article? If so, how would you prepare and what would you ask? If not, why?
I would. Are you kidding me? Of course, I'd love to take a tour. Wow, that's a what? Yes, absolutely.
All right, well, Chris, we're going to rub it in for you. Fastcart and I have both had tours. So that means that you have got to set yourself up to go on a tour, because you should have a little more clout. Well, I don't know. Fastcart's the ambassador, so he has clout. I don't have clout, but I did get to go to Austin. Fastcart, which one did you go to? Which studio?
Any place the closest to you, but like Austin or LA.
Oh, okay, all right. So go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there you go.
No, that's all right. Jerks. But yeah, I would totally love to. If I ever got an opportunity, heck yes, I would totally take it. But as far as what I ask, it really depends on the context of why it would be there. Because, like, for example, I had a couple of interviews. I was lucky enough to land a couple of interviews with some of the developers about the mole and about their drive towards economic gameplay and stuff like that. So I had some foreknowledge of what the topics were and the focus of the visit or the interview and stuff like that. So I kind of prepared based on that information. So I mean, so without knowing the context of the visit,
right?
I mean, I would try to. Yeah, there's always going to. I'm sorry.
Probably frame the context yourself.
Yeah, if I was given the opportunity to, make it up myself, then yeah, I guess the questions I would ask would be like, obviously, what's the big thing that's going to be coming out next, right? That's because everybody wants to know what's the next step forward. So that's the obvious question. I would kind of like reel back on what's things they want to improve that are in the game now, and maybe ask about where they feel in terms of balancing adding new stuff versus improving what's in there. Like, how do they kind of toe that line, which is more important to them right now, or how do they feel like they're doing in keeping that sort of balanced. And I'd ask a lot of Squadron 42 too, because the information about that, they only kick out that newsletter that has like the list of things that they've been doing for Squadron 42. But what they've delayed a Squadron 42 video now recently too, haven't they? So I would kind of like maybe poke them a little bit more about how Squadron 42 is going, especially now that they've sort of buried that whole legal fight that they had. I feel like now they can maybe focus more on making Squadron 42 a reality.
Yeah.
So I think maybe they'd be able to answer some more questions, or be willing to answer some more questions about that too. So it's kind of broad strokes. It's a broad strokes interview in my head, or visit in my head, but that would be my points, I think.
So it sounds like to me you have like enough material or questions to have like 3 articles, maybe 4.
Very possibly. It depends on how long I'd like.
You can have like a series.
Yeah, totally. I would love it. Yes, are you kidding me? I love it. Like immediate future, how they are at things, where's Squadron 42, and for the love of God, tell me how Quantum is doing. I want Quantum.
Oh, you want to interview with Tony Zerovac? I don't know. You have to go to Europe for that.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, that
Oh,
would
you have
be great.
Tony D, you have another fan.
Yeah, that would be great.
It's hard to not be a fan of him though, because the excitement that was in his presentation and at last year's CitizenCon was palpable, dude. It was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Real quick follow-up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
All right, okay. Have you considered trying to get a tour before now?
Having a what? I'm sorry, a tour? Oh, I've not tried to get a tour. No, I've not. Honestly, I kind of don't reach out to game companies myself directly. I kind of want to just have them approach me if possible, by virtue of the fact that like it doesn't feel like I'm sort of trying to beg for them for stuff, right? I kind of want to. That feels a little bit itchy to me, sort of a little tiny bit like that sort of. And I know I would write things honestly and keep the journalistic integrity of Massively in mind, and not have CIG rule the narrative. But at the same time, still feels kind of that's a little too close to that point for me if I reached out to them directly. You know what I mean?
And I would say, Chris, and I know I get from that perspective where you're coming from. I would say that I think the frustration with players is that it seems that most people who do write about Star Citizen, we see it as we don't know where the sourcing comes from. And I'm not trying to be funny when I say this. In the past, there are people who will say that we used to work at CIG, blah blah blah. And there's always that question of, is it true? And I'm not referring to Massively, I'm speaking in general. And I think that when we have seen those different journal media outlets who, like for example, Click went to CitizenCon, talked to people. I can't think of the Digital Foundry, talks with the devs directly and has had access. And I think what it does is that it lends greater credibility because so much is behind the scenes. You know what I mean? Even though the transparency is there, even for the community. But when you guys report from that angle, from the fact that, listen, this is what I saw for myself, this is the dev, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, you had the opportunity to be on the phone with some devs and talk with them. I think that that's something that it would be nice to see from those people who do cover, because there's so much stuff, especially through social media, and this from YouTube, there's so much stuff that's being fed out there. Who's got the legit story, And if you've got a reputable name and people recognize you, I think that people will say, well, at least they went for themselves and found out, not just because of what some blogger said or some streamer said or what the rumor was. So, but again, I do understand the fact that if they reach out to you, there is a different dynamic that takes place there.
Yeah, and that's a fair point too. Yeah, and I get where you're coming from. It's just kind of like trying to reach out, but like at the same time, it's a question of how much. I'm not a name, man. I'm not fastcart.
No. I wanted to say, like, put in a request for a CIG tour and tell them fastcart sent you. You're in.
Oh yeah.
That's the access, right?
Oops, I dropped his name. Oh man.
Yeah,
put a
there you
crack
go.
in the board so
There
heavy.
you go.
I was on this little show called
Yeah.
Soul Citizen, and
Yeah,
they said I
right.
could make a request.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. I think that our point was we were just encouraging you that if we got in, I think you'd have access to get in. I think that's where we wanted to go with that.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'll try to investigate that after.
Yeah,
And see if
yeah.
I can make it happen.
Yeah. The other thing, and you touched on this, and we're gonna. I don't think we have any big questions to ask today. But I do want to say this, and we talked about it earlier, and you just touched on it about Squadron 42. I think one of the biggest frustrations I've had is, and this goes into talking about communication again, or how things are interpreted, or how things are perceived. And you were around early enough to know that originally the project was about Squadron 42. It wasn't about Star Citizen. Star Citizen became the afterthought later, right? But people have blurred that line. And so when people say, why hasn't the game come out? It's because Star Citizen has gotten so much focus, where Squadron 42 has been quietly and secretly in development, right? We don't have transparency to see really what's going on because they want to protect, obviously, the story and a lot of other things. We find out about the tech, but that's about it. And other than the vertical slice that we got about a year ago, we haven't really seen anything to reveal anything. So I think that by nature, just automatically, people gravitate toward the persistent universe more than talking about, the standalone game that's supposed to precede it. And so I think that that's another thing that needs to be, distinguished, that those two games are being developed together. But like you mentioned, I think they originally we're supposed to go into beta sometime next year for Squadron 42. And that's something to look forward to for the gamers. But Star Citizen, we're talking about like Eve, right? We're talking about, and from what Chris has said, he wants it to be like Eve in the sense of that it's sustaining. That a decade from now, we're still playing it. 15 years from now, we're still playing it. That's not the same as building Call of Duty, which after, 20 hours, I'm done. Until the next year. Yeah, or until next year, until the next DLC, right? So I know that that's part of what hasn't been translated well. Unless you happen to sit and watch a Calling All Devs or 10 for the Chairman, or even go back and watch videos from 4 years ago, right? It's very easy not to see. Yeah, or miss some of those vision pieces that came out, right? So, anyway, I'm through at my high horse. Chris, Fastcart, do you have anything else you want to ask?
So you asked me which studio he should visit. I'm going to change my answer. I'm going to say visit all of them, have a series of articles, and when it's close to the Squadron 42 release date, you can get the dirt on Squadron 42 because they'll be closer to release. So there you go.
There you go. Yeah, there's your
there you go.
4 studios, 4 parts. There you go. Just tell the folks at Massively to give you your credit card, Chris, and you just need to do some traveling. Yep. Don't worry about it. It'll be easy.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm sure we can just open up the vaults of our golden yacht.
There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go.
No, make it a JPEG yacht.
Absolutely. Nitro, thank you so much for the subscription. We really appreciate that, and thanks for hanging out. Nitro. Yeah. Well, listen, folks. Chris, we have to tell you thank you so much for taking time out in the midst of, again, all that's going on in the world. You guys have really been working with us throughout, building up to this week, and hopefully our viewers learned some things and heard some things, and hopefully we shared some things with you for some insight as well into the community. So thanks for being here. Just want to say
Thanks for having me, man. It's been a delight. I'm glad to be here, and I wouldn't mind coming back again sometime.
Oh, we'll take you up on that.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been a long time subscriber, reader of Massively LP. In fact, I was a reader of Massively before Massively LP, back in the old, Massively days, before Engadget took them over. But I put a plug for Massively OP in Twitch chat. Is there anything else you want to plug?
That's the best really I can put out there, honestly. Just
okay.
Because everything that Massively Overpowered happens is because of the readers. It's Patreon, it's clicking and reading and discussing, the following the Twitch chats or the Twitch channels that we have, the podcasts, all of those little pieces of support, great and small, is what keeps us running. So that's the best thing I could plug. Just keep indie MMO journalism alive, and thank you for doing it.
and I don't want to put words in Griffin's mouth, but I know you do streams for Max Week. So the next time you have a Star Citizen stream, I wouldn't mind coming on. I'm pretty sure Griffin wouldn't mind coming on if he's available too. So
if I can get my game to work, I haven't been able to play for the past few days. All of a sudden, my computer doesn't seem to like the game for some reason.
That happens. Make sure the game's on the SSD and do all the other kind of stuff you gotta do.
Yeah, I'm going through all those troubleshooting steps. We'll see if I can make it up. But if I can make a stream work, for sure, I would love to have you guys along. Totally.
Awesome. Well, again, Chris, thank you so much for being here, and to all of our folks who sat in with us tonight. We appreciate you guys for being there, and comments and thoughts and the subscriptions and the follows. It was another great week of getting that. And fastcart, as always. Anything else you got?
Fastcart FC, twitter.com/fast_cart. Miss Hearts on Tuesday, Shiver on Wednesday and Friday. Saturday is Relay or the After Pub. Yeah, I'm all over the place.
You are all over the place. I don't know how you're busy all the time. This guy goes to bed I go to bed at 3 a.m. He's still up, and then I get up at 8 a.m. and he's up. I don't get it. I don't know. I don't know.
The past 3 days I've been going to bed at 5 a.m.
Oh God. Okay.
Oh, how sensible.
Yeah, I don't know how he does it. Anyway, Griffin.
I don't want to say thank you to all the viewers, giving us a shout out and helping us out and retweeting us and following us too. So thank you all.
Absolutely.
And thank you, Chris.
Absolutely. Griffin Gaming RPG. Look me up on Twitch. Look me up on Twitter. All of that good stuff. And hey, we appreciate you guys again. You guys be safe. Take care of yourself with all the stuff that's going on. If you're a praying person, pray for our nation and all the stuff that's going on. Hopefully we can get things together here in our country. And we love you guys. So peace, love, and soul. We'll see you guys later. Let's see. Oh, who are we going to hit tonight? Let's see who we got here. We got to raid somebody. Who are we going to raid?
Oh,
wow.
I have to interrupt you and say, you can't handle
I can't handle it. All right, I think we're going to raid Sergeant Tickles tonight. So let's hook him up. Sergeant Tickles, folks, we're going to go over to him. And guys, shout out at him. Send him some love. Tell him that we sent you over there from what are we, Soul Citizens? Yeah, tell him you sent them from Soul Citizens. I've completely forgot the name of my own. This is crazy, right? I forget the name of my own show. It's nuts.
It's one of those days.
I know it has been one of those. It's been a long day. All right, guys, take care. We'll see you guys soon.